Thank you very much. Can I say welcome? Welcome to this group of friends who are in the international community and who are here in solidarity with our colleagues in Belarus, who are putting up such a great struggle for a proper democracy to operate in Belarus, and for the protection of human rights, and for all of those people who are joining us tonight. I want to say that we're having a discussion in privacy, and it's why we haven't made it open to the whole of the world, to anybody, but we are actually having a discussion, and we've invited a number of people. As well as those who will are the speakers, we have invited attendees, include members of Parliament, representatives of the FCDO, members of the European Parliament, of the European Council, of the IMF, the OECD, the EBRD. There are more initials than I can find in the alphabet in all of the groups who are here. And I want to welcome you. I wanted to lay down some of the ground rules so that we can have a really productive meeting. The first thing is that I'm going to ask Franak Viakorsha to speak. I know that Franak is accompanying Svetlana Shikhanovskaya on her trip to Denmark, and they're both having to attend a reception, so he can't be here with us very long. So I'm going to invite him in first, and give an opportunity later for Hannah, his assistant, will remain with us or will come back to us, and she will answer any questions that you have of him and on behalf of Svetlana. I'm going to be, I'm afraid, very strict about timing. We really can't allow you much more than 5-7 minutes a piece, because we want to move from you doing a quick presentation to us of the messaging that you want us all to hear, and then we'll have a really good discussion session, because we want to move on to a sort of strategic vision for the transition in Belarus, and ways in which different stakeholders in the international community might be able to provide support to you. And so I really want this to be a productive meeting where we have outcomes at the end of it. And the only way we can do that is by moving very quickly to that exchange of views and ideas and possibilities for the ways in which those beyond the borders of Belarus might be able to help you who are there. And a lot has been happening, I know, since our last meeting. I've been trying myself to keep up with it on the international news. We know that there was a special meeting with key political prisoners in the Committee for State Security Prison. And we know that Lukashenko allowed a phone call to Svetlana, which she hadn't had for some time with her husband, and we don't know what the discussions in that interaction were about. Certainly, as far as protests have been concerned, they've continued to be brutal, but the massive Sunday protests are going on for those who haven't been able to keep up. Students, women's protests, gathering still large crowds of protesters. Police still not hesitating to use tear gas, even when the pensioners on a Monday gather. And we've seen the internet being shut down, and all manner of problems. But we know that, of course, that an ultimatum has been given to Lukashenko in relation that he should be quitting by the end of this week, the 25th of October. And so the real issue is whether he'll respond to that, and if not, the way in which people will organize thereafter. So I'm really going to start by asking if we might kick off with Franak. Franak, are you there? And can you perhaps address us and give us an update?
Sure. Thank you so much for having this conversation, and thanks to all other panelists. And I'm really honored to be the first person. I'm very sorry for the short introduction. So where we are now. So we are at the 73rd day of protests. Basically, we are still in, let's say, in control of the street protest, and the street protest is the main power and the engine of this revolution, of this uprising. Different groups joined the protest and are joining every week. Unfortunately, protests in the region are declining because of the KGB and security pressure. Many people are targeted, many people are forced to leave the country. This is the main difference of Belarus uprising and to the Polish solidarity or Soviets time, when people were opposite, kept in the country. But now Lukashenko is trying to push all those who can be troublemakers out of the country. What happened to Pavel Latushka, I think present here, and Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, and many other coordination council members. The major source of legitimacy right now is Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, because she assumably received the majority of votes, but we can't prove this. This is why she can't say that she is a legitimate president, because there is no control and there is no proof that she won these elections. And this is why the main point of strategy is to struggle and to demand new elections. And the main goal of the protests, of the coordination council, of the whole opposition forces, is to conduct new elections. So it's very instrumental strategy. To conduct new elections, it seems to conduct new elections, it seems negotiations are needed. And Svetlana Tikhanovskaya every day, including today in Copenhagen, she used to work with OSCE, because Parliamentary Assembly office is based basically here in Copenhagen. And there was discussion with different stakeholders and international players and Parliamentary Assembly about these negotiations. There is contact with Lukashenko's officials. There is contact with representatives of so-called Lukashenko's parliament. There is not direct contact, but indirect. There is contact with the MFA, but there is no sign Lukashenko wants dialogue in any form. He has extensive support from Russia. Russia also joined this. Became the stakeholder from the very beginning by putting pressure on and attacking and discrediting the protestant movement on one hand, and also giving some support, diplomatic, information, and financial to the regime of Lukashenko. What will happen and what are possible scenarios in our opinion? So we have to keep street protests going. We have constantly to keep people motivated, and this is why it's important to focus on people in Belarus and to not and every international visit, every step we do in the international arena, every action with diaspora must be focused on helping those in Belarus. If we will be able to sustain the protests and the pressure continue, the economic crisis will be another point of pressure on the regime, and it will have to make some steps forward. We don't expect Lukashenko himself to participate in this round table or dialogue or negotiations, but he definitely is looking for personalities that will be mediators on his side. And the guy who was released from the prison from KGB prison after this visit to KGB detention center, Voskresensky, perhaps this is the sign that Lukashenko is also looking for the way out. But it's not a dialogue yet. I think we are in the stage when the dialogue is preparing, and all the sides are, let's say, in improving their position before negotiations. But I think it's a matter of several weeks when we will see a real conversation on how elections must be conducted, what should be first, referendum on constitution or parliamentary or presidential elections. And if they start, then we will be having more concrete, more clear points to discuss.
Franek, can I just ask you this, because I know that you are Svetlana's representative on foreign affairs, and you're also a vice president of the Digital Communications Network. There's been a closing down of the internet. Are there specific companies that have been forced to do that, and how was that done? And is there any way we in the international community could interact on that?
What we can see that Lukashenko is keeping all the businesses and companies as hostages. So basically, he's blackmailing foreign commercial enterprises. If they will not collaborate with the regime, they will be kicked out. And Austrian Telecom, A1, which has its own daughter company in Belarus, A1 Telecom Belarus, they are participating in the internet shutdown. Every Sunday they block internet during the protest rallies, so journalists cannot broadcast from the rallies. And today A1 Telecom blocked Telegram channels from the browser. So basically we see the evident censorship empowered, enabled by Western companies which declare support for democratic movement of Belarus. So basically what we want from Western companies, at least do not help Lukashenko. Even if you don't want to help Belarusian democratic movement, at least please do not finance the regime and do not participate in the censorship, blocking, and the repressions on the people who struggle for democracy.
Now, what I want to ask you, and many of us who are here, who are supporters on the outside, can we access information about who are those companies that are propping up Lukashenko? Are there some in the UK that we can start trying to lobby and interact with to get them to withdraw? Can this be done in other parts of Europe? How can we find out who are involved in those companies, who those companies are?
I think other colleagues present here, they will explain, but there is a list of individuals that, in our opinion, that must be sanctioned because they participate in human rights violation and falsification of elections. But also there is a list of companies that are financing directly or indirectly the regime. For example, in addition to A1 Telecom, which participates in censorship indirectly, there is a company that collaborate with Belarus Kali administration, the larger potash producer, and it delivers supplies and equipment to this company, basically continuing collaborating and trading with them. It's called ICOF in Germany, and every country has every country has such guys, such businesses that continue collaborating despite the events that are happening in Belarus. And I think this is what must be discussed on the international level, including in Great Britain. Should this company should this company actually be allowed trading with a usurper who usurped the power in Belarus?
And are there, for example, British companies that are buying the potash and doing business with?
I think our team and coordination council and the office of Tikhanovska will be happy to provide this list. And I see here Anatoly Kotov and Alexey Rakovets and other great colleagues, and my colleague Hanna Lubakova, who can proceed on this. So there are definitely there are. And what we actually want, we just want to isolate Lukashenko's regime for 2-3 months from sources of funding. And it's not just about trading, it's also about development aid. As we know that despite everything that happens in Belarus, development aid is still coming to Belarus in different forms. It's not political support, but it's for different so-called humanitarian programs. But we know that these humanitarian programs are misused by the regime.
Franek, thank you so much. It's been really, really helpful. I wondered if Olga Kovalkova would like to come in. Olga. Let me tell you that Olga is Svetlana's confidant. She's a member of the Presidium of the Belarusian Coordination Council. Is Olga with us?
Да, добрый день, дорогие друзья. Спасибо за возможность выступать перед вами. Огромное спасибо за интерес к Беларуси. Я имею честь представлять Координационный совет и являюсь членом его президиума. Сегодня Координационный совет в Беларуси является единым представительным органом белорусского общества, и он был создан с целью организации процесса преодоления политического кризиса и обеспечения согласия в обществе, а также защиты независимости нашей страны. В нашей стране в этом году произошло много уникальных вещей, которые раньше никогда не случались. И само существование Координационного совета для нашей страны — это нечто новое и уникальное, потому что он сегодня включает в себя представителей абсолютно всех слоев гражданского общества. Это рабочие, бизнесмены, политики, авторитеты и лидеры гражданского общества, лидеры социальных групп. Важный вопрос, запрос последних 20 лет со стороны белорусского общества о единстве. Он реализовался сначала во время избирательной кампании при объединении штабов кандидатов и продолжил свою реализацию в идее Координационного совета. Именно поэтому, на мой взгляд, Координационный совет постоянно с момента основания подвергается атакам со стороны белорусских властей. Это и публичные угрозы в СМИ, и аресты членов президиума. До сих пор 3 из 7 членов президиума находятся в тюрьме, либо под домашним арестом. Каждую неделю задерживаются, арестовываются по административным правонарушениям другие члены Координационного совета. В Координационном совете созданы группы, которые ведут совместную работу со всеми слоями белорусского общества. Это женское протестное движение, это профсоюзы, это дворовые инициативы и региональные сообщества. Очень важно, что Координационный совет сегодня пользуется доверием белорусского общества. Например, за 3 дня на платформе «Голос» свое доверие к Координационному совету выразили более 500 тысяч граждан, и поэтому мы понимаем эту ответственность, и несмотря на то, что в условиях страны людям, которые сейчас там находятся, работать крайне сложно, мы видим свою задачу в установлении еще более тесной связи с протестными инициативами и расширении аудитории. Протестная волна, которая есть сегодня в Беларуси, она охватила все белорусское общество. Люди начинают самоорганизовываться на рабочих местах, в своих дворах. Появляются новые инициативы. Женские, студенческие, пенсионерские. И наши стратегии — это действия, направленные на давление и разрушение вертикали власти, а также на помощь людям в становлении гражданского общества, чтобы оно могло более эффективно бороться за свои права, защищать друг друга и в конечном итоге сменить действующую власть. Также наша задача — это реакция на те политические процессы, которые происходят в Беларуси, поскольку Александр Лукашенко в последнее время говорит то о диалоге, то о какой-то конституционной реформе, которую, конечно же, он проводить не будет. И наша задача — объяснять белорусам, какую угрозу таят в себе вот эти его инициативы. И, конечно же, укрепление гражданского общества — это основа к достижению нашей цели по проведению свободных выборов. Это также стратегически важная вещь на укрепление нашей страны, и это помогает противодействовать планам Российской Федерации, которая может попытаться влиять через низовые структуры и проводить свою политику. Сейчас много людей, конечно же, выехало из страны, к сожалению, но ценность Координационного совета заключается в том, что в первую очередь мы должны ориентироваться на голос тех людей, как вот сказал Франок, поддержал нас, которые работают внутри страны. Именно они должны влиять на те стратегии, которые формируются в отношении Беларуси. Мы, конечно же, будем продолжать использовать любые легальные методы для нашей работы, для развития Координационного совета как движения. И для этого в Беларуси есть и весь необходимый потенциал. И нам, конечно же, нужен ваш опыт и ваша поддержка. Спасибо.
Olga, I'm so grateful to you, and I would really like you to know that all of us on the outside who are joining these meetings are actually representing many, many more people who are so impressed by what you are all doing. and we are so impressed at the way in which the coordinating council, yes, I send that message back. I just want you to know how much we're with you and how admiring we are of you who are involved in the coordination council and the way in which you're working together and making these protests so impressive to the world. I'll move on through the speakers, and then you're staying with us so we can have people ask you some questions towards the end. Pavel Latushko, can I invite in Pavel, please? Pavel is a member of the Presidium of the Belarusian Coordination Council. He was formerly Minister of Culture and Belarusian Ambassador to Poland and to France. Pavel, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to have my conversation today. Dear colleagues, the interest with which the United Kingdom has watched the changes in Belarus has probably given you a vague idea of the situation which Belarusians are facing. 2.5 months have passed since martial law was declared in Belarus. And let me say that the reality of the mid-August terror has not stopped. Since the 9th of August, almost 15,000 peaceful protesters have been arrested. Many of them are still imprisoned. Now we have 102 political prisoners. The general prosecutor declares that he has on the table 400 criminal cases against the peaceful manifestators. People are being abducted daily. Due to the violence of the so-called riot police, hundreds have been hospitalized and hundreds have been tortured in the most obvious physical way, not to mention psychological pressure. Some of the people were killed, some of the people disappeared. It's a drama for our country, and it's a dramatic and a drama for all Europe. What me as a member of the Presidium of the Coordination Council and ex-ambassador, what I can propose to do for our friends in Great Britain. First of all, you know that now we have two main institutions in our society. It's Svetlana Tikhanovskaya with a keep. She is in Vilnius. She is our national leader. She is elected president. But it's a problem of recognition of her as a president, you know, Franek said about that. We have also Coordination Council. It was created by the initiative of Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. It's like a parliamentary structure. It was created from the representatives of the different spheres of our society. We have a presidency in the Coordination Council, we have a main group of the members, and we have the wider group of the members. So approximately 6,000 people are now in the Coordination Council. Some confidential information. We plan to declare it on Monday as one of the first steps after the people's ultimatum of creation national anti-crisis management. This should become a strong team for the transition period for crucial issues. Because the crisis today in Belarus is Mr. Lukashenko, and how to manage in this situation, it will be the task of the national anti-crisis management. And what will we do after when Lukashenko is will have fly out of the country? We're telling this way. We want to give the positive platform, the positive agenda also for Belarusian society, as always for the international society. The main topics of this national anti-crisis management will be topics of economy, Now you know that the first impulse of the protests in Belarus was falsification of the elections. The second impulse of protest was because of the huge violence against the peaceful protesters. And the third impulse of protests will be the economic situation, very dramatic economic situation in Belarus. Now we have economic default, many of the elements of economic default, and it will be the main task what we should to do with this economic default as anti-crisis management. Now we have systematical default in our country because constitution is no more in Belarus, legislation, the election sphere is no more in Belarus, and criminal case no more, etc., etc. So, and the third default is the international policy default. Our foreign policy we have no more with European partners, with main important countries all over the world, and only with Russia. But with Russia it's a great problem because Russians, they understand that they don't want more Lukashenko on the post of president, and they are pushing him now to have the national meeting, where people's meeting at the end of the year, which will declare the new constitution, or probably they will propose to adopt the new constitution during the referendum. But it's impossible today to discuss the questions of constitution when we have more than 100 people, political prisoners, when we have everyday arrests, when people lost their jobs only because they want to say that they're against violence. What is the discussion about constitution can be? So our proposition for the colleagues from Great Britain, first of all, and I will try to speak now Russian, translators, I think they will help me. Прежде всего, надо расширить список лиц, которые подлежат санкциям на въезд на территорию Европы и других стран-партнеров. Сейчас в этом списке 40 человек, и это абсолютно недостаточно. Лукашенко, и я говорю как посол с большим стажем, смеется с этого списка. Если в этом списке будут сотрудники милиции, прокуроры, следователи, судьи, которые прямым образом нарушают законы в нашей стране, не возбуждают ни одного уголовного дела по фактам убийств, насилия, издевательств, пыток в отношении граждан Беларуси, это пошатнет всю правовую силовую систему, на которой стоит Лукашенко. В этом списке должны быть все председатели районных администраций, их заместители по идеологии, начальники отделов идеологии на местах, а также все, без исключения, члены избирательных комиссий, где зафиксированы, и мы готовы доказать, фальсификации выборов. Почему? Потому что если они поймут, что у них не будет права въезда в Польшу, в Литву, в Великобританию, в Америку, в другие страны мира, они будут понимать, что в следующий раз, а следующий раз это возможно все же, власть этого хочет, референдум по Конституции, они все равно нарушат закон. Если же они будут видеть, что угрозы реализованы, и они попали в эти списки, людей, желающих нарушить закон, будет гораздо меньше. Следующий элемент – это санкции в отношении фирм и компаний, связанных с Лукашенко. Лукашенко смеется всем в лицо и говорит, что он беден. Но у него реально, я говорю как посол, очень много денег. Это миллиарды. Эти деньги находятся, как правило, в арабском мире. Мы предполагаем, что это Объединенные Арабские Эмираты. Я имею эту информацию как посол, работавший во Франции, о том, что целый ряд военных контрактов по поставке вооружений, в том числе в сотрудничестве с французской компанией, осуществлялся в арабский мир. Дельта профита оставалась за границей. Это контролировал посол Беларуси в Объединенных Эмиратах Головченко, который потом возглавлял Министерство военной промышленности, а сегодня является премьер-министром Беларуси. Не случайно. Большие деньги оседают от нефтяных контрактов. Великобритания является третьей страной по торговому обороту для Беларуси. Почему? Потому что все нефтепродукты мы продаем через Великобританию, а нефтепродукты контролируют друзья, кошельки Лукашенко. Это крупные олигархи, которые контролируют весь бизнес нефтепродуктов и финансируют в последующем его лично и оставляют эти деньги за рубежом. То же самое калийные удобрения, то же самое деревообработка. Зарабатывает власть даже с промышленных предприятий, которые фактически убыточны. Мы крупнейший в мире производитель крупнейших автомобилей, БелАЗ. Это автомобили для добычи угля, шахты, которые могут перевозить до 450 тонн. Контролирует это бизнес лично его сын Дмитрий Лукашенко, который до сих пор ни в каких списках. Его семья неоднократно прилетала во Францию, и я как посол встречал их, а также обеспечивал их чартеры на государственных самолетах с наличными деньгами. Эти наличные деньги изымала французская таможня. Но благодаря усилиям посла Франции в Беларуси и моим, к сожалению, как посла Беларуси во Франции, эти деньги всегда им возвращались. То есть они оперируют достаточно большими деньгами. То, что мы видели, это крохи. Это одни из самых богатых людей. Виктор Лукашенко, старший сын, он контролирует весь силовой блок. Он контролирует военную промышленность. Он знает также, где находятся деньги. Мы знаем список всех бизнесменов, которые в интересах Лукашенко ведут бизнес. И здесь нужны очень жесткие, четкие санкции. Следующее. Нам необходимо начать привлекать к уголовной ответственности тех лиц, которые виновны в убийствах и в насилиях, пытках в отношении белорусских граждан. Белорусская система правосудия не работает. Ни одного из них не привлекают. Английская система дает нам такую возможность, английского права. Нам нужна помощь, очень четкая и конкретная. Английская компания, фонды, которые могли бы профинансировать именно возможность организации четкого процесса привлечения к ответственности таких лиц из силового блока, возбуждая в отношении них уголовные дела, арестовывая их активы. Даже десяток примеров повлияет на всю систему, она начнет рушиться. Так что и четвертый элемент – это структурные санкции по отраслям экономики. Как делали это американцы когда-то несколько лет тому назад. Я возвращаюсь опять к концерну нефтяному, Белнефтехим, к продаже калийных удобрений. Тогда белорусское общество почувствует, что Европа солидарна с белорусами. Сегодня мы ощущаем, что все-таки после декларации ничего не последовало в реальности. Спасибо.
Thank you, Pavel. Thank you so much. I know that there are messages of appreciation coming through about the courage of all of you who are in leadership, but all of the people of Belarus who are taking to the streets and who are showing such courage. I wanted to convey a message to you from Radek Sikorski, who of course is your Polish friend, who is
yes, I know him very well. Yeah.
A member of the European Parliament, and I know him too, and it's very nice that he has joined us tonight. I'm sure he's sending solidarity to you as well. And one of the attendees is asking, what is the difference between the Crisis Management Committee and the Coordinating Council? Why do you need another body? Now listen, I can't let you have more than 30 seconds to answer that. So tell me.
I will try. Первое. Координационный совет – это про парламент. это структура, которая в основном находится в Беларуси и не может осуществлять активных действий, потому что в отношении их сразу же будут возбуждены уголовные дела, и они сядут в тюрьму. Антикризисное управление будет сконцентрировано здесь, за границей, и мы можем действовать очень четко, быстро, реагировать на ситуацию, вести диалог с Европой по плану Маршалла, по другим злободневным вопросам, отрабатывать элементы прессинга и позитивной повестки дня одновременно.
Thank you very much, Pavel. Now I'm going to invite in Nikolai Kaletsyn, who is a co-artistic director of the Free Belarus Theatre, an ex-journalist. And please join us, Nikolai. Can I bring you in?
Добрый день всем. Вечер, точнее, уже. Я коснусь изначально ситуации, которая возникла сейчас так глобально. Глобально это такое трехвекторное движение, которое идет от центра в сторону. Да? Это один вектор, это то, чего хочет белорусский народ. Второй вектор – это то, чего хочет Александр Лукашенко. И третий вектор – это то, чего хочет Кремль. Если мы говорим о партнерах европейских и американских, то можно отнести вот к этому вектору, который хочет белорусский народ. В связи с этим у каждого из этих трех акторов есть свой взгляд на транзит. Первая договоренность, которая возникла, она произошла в Сочи. Это был разговор Александра Лукашенко и Владимира Путина, когда Путин предложил ему за полгода, распределив свой транзит на полгода, по определенной схеме уйти. Лукашенко смотрел на это со своей позиции и обозначал, что ему нужно 2-3 года. То есть 2-3 года, за которые он рассчитывал, что, может быть, что-то еще изменится, и, может быть, все вернется на круги своя. Они не пришли к общему знаменателю и пришли лишь как бы формально. Но до конца транзит оговорен не был. Белорусский народ хочет, чтобы Лукашенко ушел вчера. И в этом мы, вот эти все три части не стыкуются абсолютно. В связи с этим были предприняты самые разные меры. Решил, что его алгоритмом будет длинная конституционная реформа, потом последующие выборы, и, может быть, он даже сам в них примет участие, а может быть, и вот он и рассчитал на эти 2-3 года. В связи с этим Путин говорил тоже о конституционной реформе с ним, но говорил об этом в связи с реформой поствыборной, после того, как пройдут президентские выборы. В итоге белорусский народ решил опередить и тех, и других, если говорить о Конституции. Поскольку был такой мощный инструмент был в руках у протестующих, точнее, так сказать, у народа, как платформа «Голос». Платформа «Голос» – это интернет-платформа, которая сыграла очень мощную роль в определении того, что выборы оказались непризнанными. То есть на этой форме дублировали свой выбор, регистрируясь и демонстрируя свой выбор. В итоге мы получили на платформе «Голос» сообщество приблизительно 1 200 000 человек. И специалисты, изучив их ответы и проанализировав, поняли, что Светлана Тихановская эти выборы выиграла. Во всяком случае, она точно выиграла их у Александра Лукашенко и как минимум попала во второй тур. Как впоследствии выяснилось, по большой работе, которую провел Сергей Стапенев здесь же в Лондоне, Лукашенко набрал 20%, Светлана Тихановская 52%. Но так как де-факто, и точнее даже де-юре, мы не имеем оснований говорить о ее победе, потому что мы не можем это полностью доказать, а следовательно, мы можем говорить, что она избранный президент, но мы и она называем ее сегодня лидером нации. Что же дальше? Дальше каждая из сторон, то есть все эти три стороны, я говорю о Лукашенко, о Путине и о белорусском народе, имеет свою некую стратегию. Стратегия Путина ясна, поскольку как бы мы получали оттуда информацию самыми разными путями. Была первая разработка Кремля, которая была достаточно либеральной, пугающая для Кремля либеральной. Когда Кремль определял фигуру, компромиссную для себя фигуру, не имея своей прямой фигуры на выборах, они определяли несколько кандидатов и склонялись в итоге к фигуре Виктора Бабарика, как компромиссной и фигуре, которая не будет рвать отношения и рвать существующие договоренности. Дальше Путин предложил Лукашенко вот этот вот транзит через выборы и объявление последующей там конституционной реформы. На это Лукашенко сказал, что он проведет конституционную реформу, потому что хочет, чтобы изменить что-то в существующей конституции, и после этого провести выборы. Но та конституционная реформа, которую он предлагает, она как минимум непонятна. Она непонятна первое. Почему ему для проведения выборов нужна новая конституция, если этой конституции ему более чем достаточно той, которая существует сейчас? И второй вопрос. Что он собирается менять и каким методом? И в отличие от него, на платформе «Голос» началась разработка своей конституции, к которой присоединились все ведущие юристы и правоведы Беларуси. Все без исключения. В том числе те, которые работали над Конституцией 1994 года, которая была действующей до того, как Лукашенко ее отменял. И на сегодняшний день платформа «Голос» практически завершает работу над проектом Конституции и готова выносить его на всеобщее голосование. Лукашенко рассчитывает, что он будет играть свою конституционную программу, но для него есть одна очень большая проблема. Как только он объявит о Конституции, о референдуме по Конституции, эта дата станет точкой бифуркации для нового протеста, еще более радикального. Поскольку на сегодняшний день никто не понимает, зачем нам нужна... Мы не хотим видеть у власти Лукашенко, а нам предлагается еще и его конституция еще одна. То есть это абсолютно нелогичный ход, который рассчитан только на затяжку времени. В связи с этим сейчас у Лукашенко точно так же он отыгрывает, но в своей интерпретации, предложение Путина. Путин решил, что он хотел бы провести это через некую ситуацию, напоминающую партию единства, российскую партию «Единая Россия». Поэтому в последний момент сейчас была зарегистрирована партия «Союз», которая должна выполнять такую функцию, если под новую конституцию с парламентскими выборами через выборы в парламент, в том числе по партийным спискам, то партия «Союз» должна была бы забрать там большинство, и это алгоритм Кремля. Но все это сейчас, безусловно, все эти конструкции будут рушиться, поскольку существует некий алгоритм перехода, который он по сути запущен, как бы это странно ни звучало, тем самым белорусским народом. Во-первых, протестами, во-вторых, организованной работой по давлению извне. То есть о чем говорил Павел Латушко про списки санкционные, эти списки уже, второй раунд их уже подготовлен и отправлен в европейские структуры, в американские структуры и всем нужным партнерам. Это и списки по следователям, милиции, судьям и так далее. И второй список по компаниям, которые полностью финансируют Лукашенко и его семью. Вот если сейчас это то, чего не хватает оперативности в работе европейских структур. Если бы сейчас оперативно были приняты эти списки, и мы бы начали готовить большой пакет по секторальным санкциям, то все в значительной мере бы ускорилось. И на самом деле мы бы не доводили до фазы, когда будет в очередной раз применено оружие после того, как он начнет проводить свой референдум и сам же обострять ситуацию.
Thank you very much, Nikolai. Now, I know the great work we've so many of us here in Britain who are human rights lawyers and people who are concerned with human rights organizations have followed your work and that of Natalia and the others in the Free Belarus Theatre Company for many years. So we want to express our appreciation of you and the importance of your work. Now, I wanted to invite in next Alexei Yerkovits. Where are you, Alexei? Yes, there you are. Please come in. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the unique opportunity to tell you, well, an incredible story of new Belarusian diasporas. We have not known each other until this summer. These words from a popular song became a slogan for Belarusians this year. Indeed, prior to the election campaign and the COVID-19 crisis, which was simply neglected by the authorities, Belarusians were arguably the most divided nations in the world. But year 2020 changed this for good. Belarusians self-organized and helped themselves to overcome COVID-19 problems, water contamination crisis in Minsk, and many other issues ignored by the government. Belarusians abroad still remain Belarusians. As such, small organizations within diaspora established after World War II included a limited number of Belarusians abroad, and there were not many of such organizations. The impulse for the change was the arrest of Viktor Babariko, the most prominent alternative candidate during this year's president election campaign. His popularity in Belarus was so big that people called him the candidate of hope. On 18th of June, he was stopped in his car while driving to his headquarters and imprisoned without any accusation. On this day, people in Minsk went out to the streets to express their support to Babariko and his team. Despite a heavy rain, thousands of Belarusians formed the chain of solidarity through the capital. The very next day, the Belarusians abroad joined. The first internet chat of activists in diasporas connected 21 countries. More than 3,000 people regularly attended protest events. Another significant milestone which reinforced the consolidation of diasporas was the project of organizing exit polls. 27 survey points were organized across 23 countries. 15,000 votes were processed. Exit polls results from abroad indicate that people of Belarus gave their voices to Svetlana Tikhanovskaya with a significant outweigh, 87% versus less than 4% for Lukashenko. Diasporas did a really good job developing the methodology for data processing, legal basis and technological platform, organizing trainings for the volunteers, all within less than 3 weeks. After the election of 9 of August, and unprecedented violence which followed, it became obvious that there is a lot of work ahead of us. As such, at the Council of Diaspora Coordinators of 30th of August, we decided to form a union of free Belarusian diasporas called Belarus Abroad. Now, the organization, which connects more than 50 countries around the world and more than 10,000 volunteers, provides an opportunity for everyone to come up with an idea and to own it and to get the support in implementing it. In addition, diasporas actively provide the support for Svetlana Tikhanovskaya headquarters and coordination council. For example, we helped with organizing a global solidarity week and the Women March initiated by them. We also consulted Svetlana Tikhanovskaya team in relation to establish the foundation, which is dedicated to support of voluntary movement and is called A Country to Live In. And of course, the most prominent project is the organization of Global Congress of Belarusians, which will take place on 31st of October, and within 26 hours will cover all time zones. The event will provide the opportunity for the most influential Belarusians, including Svetlana Tikhanovskaya and Mr. Pavel Latushka, who is present here, as well as Olga Kovalkova, to speak about the most concerning topics for our country related for the overcoming of political and economic crisis, as well as building a new independent democratic Belarus after Lukashenko's departure. Живе Belarus. Thank you.
Alex, that was great. Well, you've given me some thoughts, and I'll come in with them at the end. Let's then move on to Alish Aleknovich. Alish, would you like to come through, please?
Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alish Aleknovich. I'm an economist and economic advisor to Mrs. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, and also a member of economic group by the Coordination Council, responsible for the creation of anti-crisis program for Belarus. The current political crisis impacts the economy very significantly. In fact, even before the elections, the economic situation in Belarus was not so good. We experienced the second recession in the last 5 years. This recession was due to several factors, including the energy disputes with Russia of the conditions on imports of Russian oil and gas to Belarus. It was not only economic, but actually also political tensions with Russia. Then there was obviously the pandemic crisis and its impact on the global economy. Before this, there was a significant drop in commodity prices. And the Belarusian economy was hurt by at least several external factors. But even putting aside these unfavorable external factors, the domestic potential of the Belarusian economy is very low. Actually, since 2012, the average economic growth of the Belarusian economy is close to 0% on average. And even before the pandemic, the IMF forecasted that for the next 5 years, the average economic growth would be the lowest among all 27 post-socialist countries. And after the elections, all these negative economic trends, they deteriorated. Ordinary people and businesses, they start withdrawing money from bank deposits, bank accounts. The Belarusian ruble, which was depreciating since the beginning of the year, intensified the depreciation, and the inflation exceeded the target of the National Bank of Belarus. Wages and pensions in USD terms or in other hard currency terms started falling again. And the situation would look even worse if not the interventions of the central bank, which spent, or let me say it in other words, that the international reserves of the National Bank of Poland depleted by $1.4 billion in just 1 month in August. It was over 15% of the total international reserves of the central bank. And it was mainly due to the interventions on the currency market, not due to the payment of the public debt. Just to give you an example, what does it mean? At the end of June, so 1.5 months before the elections, the Ministry of Finance issued euro obligations on 1.25 billion US dollars for 6%. So quite a lot in the current low interest rates in the international markets.
Oh.
And this amount was spent in just 2 to 3 weeks after the elections, just because of political crisis and bad decisions of one person. Based on this assessment of the current economic situation and given the political mandate of Mrs. Tikhanovskaya and the Coordination Council, my purpose and the purpose of Economic Group by the Coordination Council is to make a thorough analysis of the economic situation, to prepare a framework for economic program for Belarus, and using the team that we will create, the team of highly qualified Belarusian economists, together with economic experts, the most prominent foreign economists, including reformers who already conducted successful reforms in our region, including former policymakers, including academic economists. We would like to appeal and to cooperate with the international financial institutions, with national bodies, with supranational bodies on 3 issues. One is the establishment of the anti-crisis fund for Belarus. Another one is to ask for a moratorium on paying interests on public debt for a short period of time, for 12 months during the transition. And the third issue is, although the public debt in Belarus doesn't look like too high comparing to some other countries, still for such an economy as we have in Belarus, it's a significant amount. And we would like also to talk about the restructurization of the public debt in Belarus. So this is the purpose of Economic Group, and I'm ready to answer some questions from the economic representatives at the meeting.
That would be great. I'm sure that there must be. I've already got questions for you myself. I want to warn you against the vultures who will want to settle upon you all to make money out of Belarus under the pretext of coming to your assistance. Natalia Kaliada, another great Free Belarus Theatre person who was a co-founding artistic director there and is the CEO of the Belarus Free Theatre, a writer, a diplomat, a Belarusian human rights activist, and it's very nice to see you here, Natalia. Please give us the benefit of your wisdom.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be with all of you here because it's such an urgency to discuss situation in Belarus. And I think it's very important for all of us to understand that it's not possible for us to consider Belarusian situation separately from the global situation. This particular time, it's not about Belarus only. It's not about safety and independence of Belarus only. There is a necessity to understand that if we manage to take down Lukashenko, then it will be possible for us to get that example to Russian people and to finish dictatorship in our geopolitical node. And also it's vitally to understand that when we manage to stabilize economically and democratically that geopolitical node, it means we will be able to stabilize democratic situation in Europe. Because all of us here who come from different parts of the world, and before this call, I had another call, 2-hour call with our partners in the State Department and Congress, and talking about that situation, how it's necessary to improve democratic situation. And living here in the UK for the last 10 years, it's clearly, we see the impact of Russia on the UK as well. And we see the impact of Russia on the American elections. So that's one of the major strategies that we need to keep in mind when we talk about Belarus. that it's necessary to move very fast. And there is no possibility for us to talk about months and years. On the 10th of August and before the August, we already got in touch in order to put targeted sanctions in place when 1,000 people got arrested before elections with a warning to Brussels, Washington, London, Berlin. If those targeted sanctions will not be put in place, there will be bloody crackdown. And unfortunately, answer at that time was we had summer holidays and COVID. And as a result of it, we got bloody crackdown. And now we deal with exactly with that particular situation. Even though, of course, we appreciate what is done by European Union, but we must admit that it's done very slowly. So this coming Friday, all the papers will be submitted to lawyers in EU for the second round of sanctions. But we must be already on the third or fourth, where all money bags and entities and semi-sectoral sanctions will be put in place. And here we're only getting a small list of people who will be, again, it will be judges, prosecutors, electoral commission, high officials, high profile policemen. But we need to move exactly to those who conducted those tortures. There is a necessity for that individual responsibility that doesn't exist now. As Pavel Latushka mentioned, Lukashenko is laughing at face of EU and America. And now we must move to proper hitting of those money bags. I submitted that list of major money bags this week to the UK and to Brussels and to DC. And there are 12 people and 26 companies. And it's exactly the question that, okay, talking personally here to the UK and our great friends and supporters, and we work very closely with Maria Mila MP, who is our trustee, and with Minister Wendy Morton. That's exactly, and very happy that now we have such a huge circle of supporters. And it's exactly a great opportunity for the UK to show that how strong the UK is with no EU. Very black humor in terms of Brexit, but unfortunately we have what we have. And we need to put those sanctions against money back. I'm happy to meet and personally give another hard copy to those people who could help to push it as well, because currently we're passing only hard copies and I'm delivering from hand to hand. Why we're doing that? In order to avoid any leakage of information. With all major money bags people, the moment they get to know that they're getting on sanctions, straight away they're moving their money out of all countries where money exists. So that must be done. Secondly, universal jurisdiction. So on the 5th of November, OSCE will publish the report based on Moscow mechanism. It will be the only possible report before UN will report in March that we could use for universal jurisdiction. Also, we're trying to launch now ICC. It's a big job and it might be symbolic. But with the help of UN Security Council, we could make general prosecutor of ICC to start investigation and make individual responsible all those who conducted those tortures and rapes and murders. Obviously, we understand Russia will veto that, but symbolically we could kick their asses, forgive my language, not the British one, but it will be very useful now. And as well, what is happening now with, I could say, with President-elect Svetlana Tikhanovskaya blessing yesterday, trade union of new Belarusian police was established. And before the 26th of October, there is that ultimatum when it comes to force, policemen have the right to move to the people's side. And now the information is coming that only KGB and riot police is staying on Lukashenko's side. So that's a major message as well, that military of democratic forces, as it was before, could talk directly to their counterparts in Belarus and make that explanation to them that it's better to move into people's side. And there are different international examples as Sudan. The main thing for us is to avoid Zimbabwe. Of course, we need to work with UAE, and it will be possible to compare to Iranian situation that was done before, when it was simply explained to UAE that people, you could continue, of course, work with banks of Iran, or if you stop to work with those banks, then it will be a possibility for you to continue to work with American, British, and European banks. So even those countries as UAE and Qatar and others, they need to make up their minds, and we're able to make that pressure.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Thank you very much indeed. And it's great that you're here in London, because it means that we can perhaps have an opportunity of meeting, albeit at socially distanced meetings. Miriam Lexman has had to go because she's having to vote, but she wanted to say thank you for a really informative and terrific meeting, and she sends her love to Olga and Elena and Yulia and to her different friends. I also wanted just you all to know that Pavel Latushko has gone because he's actually suffering from COVID and is not very well just now, and but he did want to participate, and so he's done that, but he's gone now to rest. So it was great that he turned up. I hope you agree with me. It was wonderful. So I'm now going to ask Anatoly Kotov, who's a former employee of the Belarusian president's office. He's the ex-general secretary of the National Olympic Committee of Belarus, and he can take questions in relation to any of the matters that Mr. Latushko spoke to. So Anatoly, is there anything you'd like to say briefly before I invite in some of the questions that are being asked?
For sure. Thank you for the opportunity to have a chance to speak before this audience. I have just one remark. It's connected to the very first, I would say, speakers, Franek Vechorka and Pavel Latushko, who've been speaking about sanctions. For example, Franek Vechorka mentioned A1, a company which is blocking internet now and which is blocking internet during all these peaceful marches. I would like to just know that sometimes it's not only about such, I would say, vivid things as blocking internet. A1 technology, unfortunately, now is being widely used to detect people who are participating in these peaceful protests, because all the, I would say, opponents who have their cell phones with them after peaceful matches receive SMSs and receive messages from Belarusian, I don't know even how to say, police system or Gestapo system, and they are now being detected by just being within these cells, and also there are two more Austrian companies, unfortunately, who are involved. It's about Kapsch company and Evanside Holdings, which provide information from video storage and civilians, also to Belarusian police, and this helps to detect people who are participating in such marches. So I guess we have to be no more politically polite towards such things, and from the perspective of sanctions, I would like to thank Natalia Kalada for the great job they are doing in Great Britain, but we have to, I guess, unite our possibilities in order to make this process as smooth as possible, and we have to be strong here in order Lukashenko not laugh at us like that was during previous sanction sessions. This is the only remark I would like to add, and so I can answer any questions which are directed to Pavel Latushka.
Okay, thank you so much, Anatolia. That was really, really helpful. I'm going to also remind you that Hannah Lyubakova, Franak's assistant, who's a broadcast journalist, and she's with the World Press Institute as an intern. There she is, there's Hannah. If anyone has any questions that they would have been directing towards Franak, she could answer them. Is there anything you'd like to sort of contribute at this point, Hannah? And then I'm going to ask Julia Korostoleva to come in. Hannah, have you anything you'd like to say?
Sure. Good evening. Hi. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Maybe perhaps I'll add something. I couldn't hear the whole discussion, so I was a bit late because of some other obligations. But I would add perhaps to sanctions. I'm not sure whether it was mentioned or not, but while a group of people is working on the list, and they've been working hard to compile, the list of people from different spheres, from different areas, starting from government officials to obviously these entities, and Natalia mentioned that. But I would say what I heard, the feedback I'm having from this group of people is that sometimes it's kind of really hard to find evidence, and it's kind of obvious that these people are connected to the regime. They are either those kind of businessmen who finance Alexander Lukashenko, or some kind of, his closest circle. And basically, it's kind of I guess, most difficult part to kind of how to find evidence of this. And if some of these kind of requirements are made easier, I think it would be also helpful. And I guess what this group is working on is also to kind of include those, not perhaps enterprises, but directors, heads of those enterprises, where workers are being repressed, where workers are being fired and jailed. So that's kind of another idea that these people are having. So yeah, perhaps I'll stop here, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
That's very helpful, Hannah. There was a question from Nigel Gould Davis saying, wouldn't it be better to have a sort of blanket sanctions of the sort of whole of the leadership of the regime? Anyway, if somebody might want to answer that, I can do that. But I think it's better that it comes from someone else. And Alice, we've got a question for you on the economics thing. One was, and it's one that any of the panelists might want to answer, which is, it's about state-owned enterprises, on the importance of state-owned enterprises, and whether, and the support that you've been given, the opposition's been given by their employees in the weeks and months to come. And what is your attitude towards those state-owned enterprises in the hereafter? And then there's, for you, Alex, are you proposing debt rescheduling or debt write-offs? What have you got in mind? So I might come to Alex with that one first, and you might want to say something about the state enterprises while you're at it, and then anybody else who wants to come in. Alex? Good.
Thank you for the questions. Let me start from the restructuring. In fact, we are thinking of a combination of these three issues: anti-crisis fund, a moratorium on paying interests, and public debt write-offs. The exact mixture will depend on many factors, including what will be the situation in the economy when the political crisis will be finally solved. We don't know yet when it will happen. how will the economy look like, how much financial resources will we need to stabilize the economy. So this is why I'm not talking right now about the exact details.
Yeah.
So, but we are
Of
thinking
course.
of rather a combination of these three issues I mentioned, and it will also depend on the geopolitical situation, on some political factors. But so far we have huge support from informally or formally from many diplomats, from many supranational institutions, from international financial institutions, and we find the understanding that conditional that the political crisis will be solved, there is a lot of room for technical support, for financial support, for other supports for Belarus. And we are right now preparing the team, preparing the economic program, preparing for discussion with our counterparts. Coming back to the first question on SOE, on state-owned enterprises, this is obviously one of the biggest challenges for the Belarusian economy for many years. The situation is not clear. We as independent economists, we don't have all the information on the public sector, on state-owned enterprises there. One of the recommendations of international institutions, including the World Bank, was to make a thorough analysis of the whole state-owned enterprise sector, and to divide this group into three segments, three categories. Those that might exist without public support and might be competitive. Another group which might exist under the condition that there will be public support for them, but also some restructuring there. And the third group of state-owned enterprises, which probably should be somehow solved in other ways, like liquidation, optimization, and so on. But in general, the problem is huge. It's difficult to respond, to explain it in one sentence, or to say that we'll solve it, or somebody will solve it in, I don't know, 1 month or half a year or even a year. For sure, the problem in Belarus right now is not the same as it was 30 years ago in post-socialist countries, because the share of the state-owned enterprises in the economy is at least twice smaller in Belarus as it was 30 years ago. So this is why also the private sector is there, which is ready to also create new jobs, new places for people from the state-owned enterprises. So there are lot of potential for the solution.
Alice, thank you so much. I wanted to just mention that my friend Torlach wants me to let everybody know how delighted that we are that the opposition movement has received the European Union's Parliament Sakharov Prize for freedom of thought. There have to be some celebrations, and here's one. I also wanted to say that Konstantin, who's a great lawyer here, a Belarusian, and who's been part of our group, has said that that really there's no chance of the ICC dealing with the situation in Belarus. That's the International Criminal Court. It would be better to focus on lobbying neighboring countries to initiate investigations of torture on the basis of universal jurisdiction. So thank you, Konstantin. I also wanted to mention that David Conway is asking this question. Where does the military stand? We've heard mention that the KGB and the riot police units are completely loyal to Lukashenko. And we're assuming that the elite units, the paratroopers and the Spetsnaz would be loyal. But what about the conscripts, the young conscripts who would, if they weren't in uniform, probably be protesting? What about them? Who would like to answer that?
I quickly answer, but anyone, of course, please add to that. Because we're working very closely with our partners in Warsaw, who exactly established the institution there, and where Belpol was announced, this new trade union of new Belarusian police. What is happening now, they manage to secure smuggling operation of a number of very high rank policemen who are currently giving testimonies. And also they already started to work as investigators for Belarusian people. And they're providing information that in terms of Ministry of Emergency situation, they are more or less on people's side, kind of military because they don't get involved into those murders. So there is a very good situation in terms of if we shake it much stronger, they will move, at least they will start to sabotage, because they have clear understanding that Lukashenko lost, even among law enforcement. But yes, still KGB and big numbers of riot police, unfortunately, on the side of Lukashenko. But even there are also interesting developments when the wives are leaving them because they saw their pictures and they can't continue to be their wives because of personal threats as well. There is an interesting development there, and there is a good chance if we continue to push. But the economy, I mean, like if we manage to hit the economy, then they understand that Lukashenko will not
Natalia, you're cutting out. I'm not. We're not hearing you. Sorry, Natalia, we've lost you. I think you were saying something about the economy. If the economy stays,
if the economy, I don't know whether you hear or not, internet connection.
I can hear you now. You were just that final thought about the economy. If the economy
manage to hit the economy, Lukashenko will not have money to pay to law enforcement.
Alice, I just want on that question. Someone's asking. I think it's Katia. How long do you think it would be before the economy starts feeling a real fallout? Can you turn on your microphone?
Could you repeat the question, please? I can't see it.
Katia is saying to consider all the risks. When will considering all the risks that you've described, and imagining that Russia only continues with a sort of mid-level sort of support, when will Belarus start feeling the fallout, the economic fallout?
All right. Let me start from commenting on the Russian support. In fact, my opinion is that the financial support from Russia is not that huge so far, or at least it hasn't been that huge so far. Mr. Putin agreed with Mr. Lukashenko on supporting the Belarusian economy with $1.5 billion in the second half of August. Since then, only recently, only a week ago, Belarus received the first tranche. It was $500 million, and it was mainly on paying the previous debts. So it's not, there is no new resources for the economy.
Okay.
Another tranche.
So when will the fallout? I've got to move you along. I'm sorry. When are we likely to see a fallout? Okay, sorry. I need to speed.
Under the condition that no external financial resources will be poured into Belarusian economy, and even Russia or China are not hurrying up to support Belarus, then I see that at the end of this year or at the beginning of the next year, the Belarusian economy will experience a much significant deterioration.
Downturn. Yeah. Okay. So that should be happening, Katya. End of this year, beginning of next year, we'll start seeing. But I think that's going to be happening in a lot of places as well as Belarus. Now, let me just mention a few other points. Jonathan Cooper had a question for you, which is the court, is court-ready evidence being collected? I mean, you've mentioned that some former police officers are doing that, but Jonathan's expressing concern that it's not happening with enough success. It will be a big problem later in bringing cases. The evidence collection of torture and of those sorts of things are vital, and you have to do it now so that it has real credibility when in bringing this before courts in the region for torture and so on, that you really do need to be gathering evidence now. And so Jonathan's asking about that. Is there work being done on that?
Yes, the work is done. 450 cases are recognized by UN, and also High Commissioner, UN High Commissioner already announced today that they are collecting additional evidences, and the call will be closed on the 16th of October.
Thank you. Professor Andrea Goric is asking a question on constitutional reform. She's asking, is the Venice Commission involved with giving advice to you or any of the other European countries about, reconstructing parliaments? Is there any advice being given to any of you who are in the leadership?
Actually, we can say that constitutional reform is not the main issue for today, because it will take a long time. I know that great work has been done by a commission led by Mr. Lebedko. The draft of constitution has been prepared, and also Nikolai Halezin has been mentioning the draft which was voted via Golos project. It's all the same document, because this actually the bigger project than Golos has managed to push in the strict limitations of Telegram project, but they have put only major principles of the constitution, and we've managed not to, I would say, we've managed not to go the way the Lukashenko's team tried to put us in this discussion of constitutional reform. The main issue for us is new and free elections, and then we can sit. I guess it will take not a month, at least half a year, or even more, like has been in Poland. They have conducted free elections since 1989, and only in 1997 they have adopted their constitution. It took 8 years to elaborate sustainable document. So for us now, the major issue and the issue of greatest importance is to hold new elections. It's possible, and our colleagues from OECD in Warsaw confirm that it's possible to have new elections based on not the best, but still existing legislation in Belarus. We have to change instructions for the election commissions, and we have to change the elections commissions composition themselves. And then it's possible to have almost normal election process, and to have a real new democratic president in our country. And then we can sit together with the Venice
Then we can
Commission
think
and
about
elaborate the constitution.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to there are questions being asked. My great friend Torlach from Ireland is asking whether it would be possible for people here to support some of the people who've lost their jobs, or to give support to any of the NGOs in Belarus. I know that we've been encouraging people here to I mean, basically the British government to be supportive of some of the NGOs in Belarus. Would that be possible or impossible? And I'm being told that there are a number of ways that that could be done. And some research has been done on that, involving foundations and so on. And it might be possible. So perhaps off the panel, people might want to have some discussions with maybe via Jonathan. Now, I wanted some of our other friends. Yulia, would you like to come in and say anything? Yulia.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you actually for your wonderful, excellent sharing. I think this has been a very interesting session, which provided us with a lot of insights and the way forward, and various suggestions how, and also different stakeholders of the international community could continue actually supporting the Belarusian people in their fight for democracy. As we actually were running this webinar, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya was attending the ceremony in Denmark to receive this Peace Prize award. So it's quite symbolic. And also, I think with a few that may seem real instruments that the international community has at its disposal to respond to the crisis in Belarus, it is, I believe, good timing to reconsider some of the traditional approaches and calling for maybe new and more robust response from the international community, progressing, I believe, from symbolic sanctions that we have at the moment against the officials, to sanctioning perhaps like core business people and that sponsor the regime, as well as businesses associated with them. And I think progressing then to sectoral sanctions as well. Back in 2012, I was against them. I was proposing only targeted sanctions, but now I believe, given that Lukashenko has little support amongst actually any of the parts of the society, any groups of the society, I think it would be good timing actually to start considering sectoral sanctions as well, and starting maybe from oil industry. There are a number of trading companies, oil trading companies located across Europe that actually they appear to be subsidiaries of the Belarusian oil company, and we can start perhaps from targeting them as well. So I would like to thank actually all the participants in this webinar, and first of all, actually our excellent panelists, because I know that they have limited time and it's difficult to find actually time for this webinar in their tight schedule, and for their wonderful thoughts and contributions today, and also to the organizers of this webinar today, like great support we received from Daughter Street Chambers and Jonathan Cooper specifically, and also Richard. And I would like to say a big thank you actually to the team who was working on preparing this webinar, and Professor Elena Korostilova from University of Kent, and Pavel Kuryan, who is a Belarusian lawyer. And also to Belarusian International Committee, who is doing a great job and actually continue speaking about Belarus and also making some actions.
Well, I want to thank everyone too. I want to thank you, Yulia. I want to thank my colleagues in Doughty Street and Jonathan and Richard, who have been heroes in putting this together, but also the great Belarusian academics who enrich our life here in Britain, and Natalia and the people who are our colleagues who keep us well informed. We are with you all the way. I just wanted to finally say that it's really important that we have these opportunities to come together and to be brought up to date. I understand someone has told me that the Venice Commission has to be asked to do anything on constitutions. So Anatoly, although the first thing is to actually get rid of this president and to have free elections and to have your new government, but thereafter you may be able to get assistance if you ask, and maybe some work could be done in the meantime. And I wanted to finally say that a question came in to ask about Boken, who was leading the strikers at the potash factory, and we want to support him too. And so bear him our good wishes, and we hope that he still hasn't been arrested. Is he still around? Has he been arrested? I'm assuming that he's still demonstrating. Anyway, listen, thank all of you. It's been a very, very productive evening. I'm grateful to you all. Solidarity to everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. That was exciting.
Thank you.